Welcome to the Daily Insider here on VegasInsider.com. Kevin Rogers with you, and we were off last week with the All-Star break, and even though we did have the NBA Finals, only one game during the week, but we're back now with you tonight, and we'll see if the NBA Finals finishes tonight or if we have a Game 7 coming up on Thursday night between the Suns and the Bucks, and we will talk about that coming up in just a few moments. Also, a lot of baseball to hit on for today's card. First, let me begin with the Daily Insider Contest, which we have now. We have the show from Monday through Friday at noon Eastern, and since we started July, we're just going Tuesdays and Thursdays at noon until we get to about late August when football really kicks into gear, and then we'll be back 5 days a week. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, you can catch the Daily Insider on VegasInsider.com and our YouTube channel at Vegas Insider. So the Daily Insider Contest is very easy to enter. If you have a Vegas Insider user ID or you put your best bet down for the day. So let me explain all of it for those of you that are new. That in this contest, if you have a Vegas Insider user ID, you put that in the comments section below this video, along with your best bet for the day. Now, it can be for the NBA. It can be for Major League Baseball. I know there's not a lot of choices right now with hockey done. There's no WNBA. They're on hiatus with the Olympics starting. But you can have for the NBA a player prop bet for tonight. You can post. It could be a first quarter play. It could be a first half play. It could be a strikeout prop for baseball. It could be a first inning play for baseball. Or it could just be a normal side or total. It's your choice. It just can't be a live bet. It's got to be before the event starts. And you put your Vegas Insider user ID along with your best bet below in the comments section of this video. Now, if you don't have a Vegas Insider user ID, it's very easy to get. You go up to the big yellow register button in the upper right-hand corner of the homepage, click on that, and then once you go to the register button, then it will take you to a page that will allow you to register. Free membership, register now. It's free to register. And once you get through that and you fill out you create a user ID for yourself, you create a password, put in your email address, first and last name. Now the question is, what am I doing all of this for? Well, the prize is a week's worth of handicapper picks from one handicapper of your choosing for 7 days. It's a $100 value. You get it for free if you win the contest. Now, again, a couple stipulations here. Number one, you have to have your best bet win. If it loses, then you can't win the prize. Number two, because you win your best bet doesn't mean you automatically win. It just means that you're in the running for the free picks for a week. So if 5 people have a winning pick, not all 5 people will win. Just one person will win, but one of those 5 people, for instance, will win the drawing. So that's what it comes down to. So if you don't have a user ID, you create one. If you have one, you put it below. We ask you to do that so we can find you. It's simple as that. We'll just find you online, not really in person. All right, let's begin now with tonight. And the NBA Finals back in Milwaukee, game number 6 between the Bucks and the Suns. And Milwaukee right now a 5-point favorite in most spots, 4.5 at some, total of 222. Now we did see. Let's go back to Saturday night. A very odd night for an NBA Finals game. Normally I don't play on Saturday nights, but Milwaukee was down 16 at the end of one, and they roared back. They scored 79 points in the 2 middle quarters, and they hold off Phoenix 123-119. Now, a lot of things to take out of this game. Number one, that Giannis Antetokounmpo has not had a bad game in this series. And that is why, unless Phoenix wins the next 2 games, there's no way to think Giannis isn't the MVP. That his worst game, in fact, was game 1, when he was coming off the knee injury that kept him out of the last 2 games of the Eastern Conference Finals against Atlanta. His worst game of the series was 20 points and 17 rebounds. So think about that for a second. Since then, Giannis has put up 42 and 12, 41-13, 26-14, and 32-9. Had that big dunk at the end on the alley-oop from Drew Holiday, and that put that game away. Even though Giannis struggled from the free throw line, he had a lot of key misses late. The Bucks still ended up winning. So the Bucks were down 2-0. They've won 3 straight, now up 3-2, a chance to close at home, where Milwaukee has already won by 20 points and won by 6. And they were down basically that whole game to Phoenix in Game 4. And the Bucks rallied back in the fourth quarter, ended up winning, and then the Bucks won the highest scoring game of the series on Saturday, 123-119. And that total closed at 219.5, 220. So now you have 222 as the total going into tonight's game. And I think it goes backwards. I think it goes under the total that Phoenix, when the game's been played in Phoenix so far in the playoffs, there's been a lot of overs. Games in Milwaukee have stayed under the total for some reason. And you did have 2 overs in the Atlanta series. One was without Giannis in game number 5. But for the most part, Milwaukee has played a lot more unders than overs at home. And after the Suns hit 13 of 19 three-pointers in game 5 and still lost, and shot 55% from the floor and hit 10 of 11 free throws, and they still lost, I can't see how they win this game tonight. I really don't. I like Milwaukee. I think the Bucks close it out. The Bucks laying 5 says a lot. And when the trio of Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday, when they can combine for, 88 points in game number 5, that team is very hard to stop. And the problem, think about this. It goes back to the old argument. Who would you rather have? Which 3? Giannis, Middleton, and Holiday, or Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton? Devin Booker's been fantastic the last 2 games, but the Phoenix Suns have lost both those games. And I mentioned Giannis hasn't had a bad game in the series. Devin Booker's had a bad game in the series. But even though Chris Paul put up better numbers in game 5, he had 21 and 11, he's just taken a step back, it feels like, the last few games. I don't know if he's 100% or what, but game 4, he had a lot of poor passes he made, and the Suns totally melted down at the end, and Giannis had that big block at the end of game 4. I'm not going to take away from that. But Chris Paul had 32 in game 1, 23 in game 2. In the last 3 games is 19, 10, and 21. So his scoring has gone down over the last 3 games, and DeAndre Ayton, even though he's coming off a double-double, 20 points and 10 rebounds, he's been a rebounding machine in this series for the Suns, but he went from 22, 10, 18, 6, 20. He's just been so up and down over the last few games in the series that now it feels like we're going back to the down tonight. And Milwaukee just has 3 better pure scorers than Phoenix does. Devin Booker is an elite scorer in this league. Chris Paul, he can score, but he's a point guard. Like he's not out there to score 30 points a game. Chris Middleton has showed that he is an excellent shooter, and his series he's had some rough games in the playoffs. Nobody can dispute that. But Middleton the last 2 games has 40 and 29. And Drew Holiday's had a lot of struggles, but he stepped up late. And like I've always said, it's all about the bench or the supporting players. When you take out the 3 for Milwaukee, the 3 stars, and the 3 for Phoenix, who else is going to step up? Pat Connaughton had 14 for Milwaukee in Game 5. Mikal Bridges had the big game number 2 for the Suns. But since then, he's dipped. He's scored 27 in Game 2. He has 24 in the last 3 games. So that's not going to get anything done if you're the Phoenix Suns. And again, Jay Crowder's been up and down, and the bench is non-existent for the Suns. They played 8 players the other night total. And Cam Johnson, Cameron Payne, and Torrey Craig combined for 15 points. So that Devin Booker just can't carry everything himself. Giannis is going to score his points, but the other guys are going to score too, where I feel like Devin Booker's carrying the entire offense for Phoenix right now. I think it's Milwaukee in the under tonight, and this thing's going to be over. And I think this series will be done. And for as well as Phoenix played the first two games, look, let me lay this out, because when we're back on Thursday, yes, if we have a Game 7, we'll revisit all of this, but if not, the season will be over tonight. I don't think that either of these teams will get a fair shake as far as being a legitimate title team, because they both had flaws along the way, where Milwaukee had to face, or they faced a Brooklyn team where James Harden wasn't 100%. He missed a few games. Kyrie missed a few games in that series. When Harden came back, he wasn't his normal self, and Kyrie missed the final 3 games of that series. And then Milwaukee drew Atlanta and not Philadelphia, the number 1 seed. And Milwaukee's clearly better than Atlanta. But then with Phoenix, they were down 2-1 to the Lakers. Anthony Davis got hurt, and then the Suns cruised. So obviously the Lakers are a different team without Anthony Davis. Then they beat Denver, all right. I can't really say if they would have played Portland. I don't think it would have mattered. They probably would have knocked out either of those teams. Then they faced the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard. And Paul George did as much as he could, but obviously if one superstar down, that's going to hurt. So both these teams had flawed roads going to the NBA Finals, but yet, this is it. This is, if they win the title, they win the title. No, everyone else either got hurt or they just couldn't handle it. And no matter who comes out of this, they survived. So I'm not going to get on these teams. And look, Giannis got hurt for 2 games in the playoffs too. But I guess Chris Paul was out 2 games for in the Clippers series with the COVID stuff. So it's just been a mess. And whoever wins it, I know the majority will say, oh, well, it's not right. This isn't legitimate. But whatever. This has still been a pretty entertaining series, at least the last few games. And it's not a sweep. You don't have, like we saw even in that Warriors-Cavs, going back to that, when you had stars with LeBron on one side, LeBron and Kyrie and Kevin Love, and then Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, then Durant came in. You had stars, and those series weren't that great. There were a lot of blowouts in those series. And the only reason why you had one really good series or one good ending is because Draymond Green got suspended and the Cavs got back in that series. So we want the star power, but yet those series aren't good. But we have star power with Giannis, who's a 2-time MVP, with Devin Booker, and even with a Hall of Famer and Chris Paul. So it's been entertaining. We're not in the bubble anymore. And we're at a 6th game tonight. And yes, I like Milwaukee, but could Phoenix win? Of course they can win. And if Phoenix wins, you go back home now for a Game 7. What else do you want? You got a Game 7 in the NBA Finals. All right. Let's move on to baseball. And you had a couple blowouts last night, like ridiculous blowouts in Major League Baseball. That were, 2 of them were done early, and 1 was a little later. You had the Marlins and the Nationals, where the Nationals led 10-0 after the second. They won 18-1 over the Marlins. The Red Sox led the Blue Jays 8-0 after 1 and 11-0 after 2. They won 13-4. And the Tigers ended up pulling away from the Rangers, winning by 2 touchdowns, 14-0. So you had 2 games decided by 14 runs or more, another decided by 9, and you had a 15-11 game that went to 11 innings between the Mets and the Reds. So, and then some other decent finishes, but still. Let's look at tonight, and you have the Nationals and the Marlins. We'll start with them. The Marlins actually were favored earlier this morning. Now it's more of like in the pick'em realm, and Miami has had a rough stretch since they played well against the Dodgers before the All-Star break. They lost the finale 6-1, and since then they've lost 2 of 3 to Atlanta, 3 of 4 to Philadelphia, and then dropped a 17-run decision to the Nationals last night. So it has not been good, and the Marlins are losing a lot of their pitchers to injury. Pablo Lopez went on the IL. Now Trevor Rogers, their all-star, he goes tonight against Washington, and he wasn't able to beat Max Scherzer the last time he faced the Nationals up in D.C. But the Marlins, though, they've struggled. Washington went through a stretch of playing really well, then really poorly. I mean, shoot, Washington lost 24-8 to San Diego back on Friday. They captured the finale 8-7 in walk-off fashion on Sunday, and that snapped a 5-game losing streak for Washington. Now they won last night. So Washington has seen the overhit in 4 straight games. And, again, pick 'em spot. I don't know how much I trust the Marlins just because they're just not playing well. And Washington's offense has at least performed better. Good luck if you want to take a team that just lost by 17 runs. The Mets and the Reds from Cincinnati, and the New York Mets have had a very interesting last few days. They got down 6-0 to Pittsburgh in the first inning on Sunday. They had that wacky play where Taijuan Walker tried to knock that ball that was hit down the third baseline about 10 feet in front of the plate. He tried to knock it into foul territory, but it barely grazed the chalk. And 3 runs scored. The bases were loaded. 3 runs scored. And it was all sorts of issues there for the Mets early, but somehow they came back and beat the Pirates. And then they go to Cincinnati to start their series last night. They're up 3-0 out of the chute. And then Cincinnati comes back, scores 7 straight runs to go up 7-3 after 2. Mets took the lead late. Reds tied it to go to extras. Then the Mets score 6 runs in extra innings to win 15-11, a game that featured 34 hits between those two teams. And New York, a couple crazy comeback wins the last few days after they had a rough stretch against the Pirates. But New York, hey, they're still on top of the NL East. Jacob deGrom is hurt. They got a lot of injuries to their pitching staff. I mean, they're trying to just get by right now, considering the other teams in the NL East, the Braves without Ronald Acuna Jr., the Phillies are very up and down. The Nationals, just talked about them. They went through a tough stretch. They've won a few in a row. But the Mets, hopefully for them, they built up enough of a lead that maybe if they get Jacob deGrom back soon, they should be okay. But at least the lineup was a little more healthy because the lineup was banged up a little while ago. So tonight, Robert Stock and Wade Miley on the mound. And Robert Stock isn't exactly a household name. He was with the Padres. He was with the Red Sox. And now, he was with the Cubs. So he is getting an opportunity here for the Mets. His last opportunity came against the Brewers back in a doubleheader. 4 innings, 4 hits, 2 earned runs in a 5-0 defeat to Milwaukee. So now he's going to try again against the Cincinnati team that right now is flat out struggling. That this just shows you how the momentum can die really quickly. The Reds took 3 of 4 at Milwaukee before the All-Star break. They got swept at home by the Brewers, allowed 26 runs in 3 games. They gave up 15 last night, so 4 straight overs for the Reds. And Wade Miley, he gets the start tonight. Miley's been really good. He's had a resurgence this year. 7-4 record, 2.80 ERA, and he tossed 8 scoreless innings in that 2-0 victory over Milwaukee prior to the All-Star break, and the Reds have won 7 of Miley's last 8 starts. And he's been really good. And he gets through 7 innings throwing less than 100 pitches. So Miley favored tonight against the Mets. Padres and Braves did not play last night. They had a rainout, so they're playing today, and then they're playing tomorrow, a doubleheader in Atlanta. It's Yu Darvish and Kyle Muller on the mound. And for Yu Darvish, he has struggled, to say the least, the last 2 starts. He's allowed 10 earned runs and 14 hits in his last 9 innings of work. he got lit up by the Nationals early, that crazy 9-8 win for the Padres in which they trailed 8-0, and the Padres came all the way back to win. But Darvish, though, 3.09 ERA, just goes to show you how low his ERA was before he got torched the last two starts for the Padres. And looking at his road numbers of late, Darvish allowed 4 earned runs in a loss at Philadelphia. He allowed 4 earned runs in a loss at Colorado. He allowed 5 runs, 4 of them earned, in an extra innings win at Houston. So the road numbers for you, Darvish, have not been very good of late. So I don't know if you want to look at an over there potentially. Kyle Muller is actually not a bad young pitcher for Atlanta. His last 2 starts, 10 2/3, 5 hits, 3 earned runs, 16 strikeouts. So if you find maybe a strikeout prop on Kyle Muller, you can maybe look at the over there on him. But the Padres and Braves are going to start their series coming up tonight. The Cubs and the Cardinals from St. Louis, and it was all Cardinals last night. I mean, the Cubs. It'll be interesting to see what they do at the trade deadline coming up in, about a week or so. Last night, 8-3 win for St. Louis. So after the Cubs won the first 2 at Arizona, they've lost 2 in a row now. And when Chicago had that 11-game losing streak, they've won 4 games since late June. It's been bad. And the Cardinals have woken up, so good for them. After they struggled at Colorado, they took 2 of 3 at the Giants. They split 2 with the Cubs at Wrigley, and they took 2 of 3 from the Giants again. So went 4-2 against San Francisco. That's a really good job. And then beating Chicago last night. So St. Louis, that's 6-3. The last 9, that's not a bad job by the Cardinals. They're actually coming back to life now. They're at 500. And Johan Oviedo, who has not been good for the Cardinals on the road, better at home. I wouldn't say the numbers are great, but at least a little better. And he takes the mound for St. Louis tonight. Oviedo pitched well against the Marlins the last time one of his last starts at Busch Stadium. And again, the road numbers for Oviedo, they have not been good. But he also, I'm sorry, yeah, the road numbers haven't been great. Home numbers have been better for him. But Oviedo, maybe it's worth a shot here. Trevor Williams goes for the Cubs, the former Pirate, and he'd been out for a bit, and he's coming back tonight in the fold. 5.51 ERA. He pitched against the Phillies right before the All-Star break, 15-10 loss. He allowed 7 runs in less than 4 innings of work. So the Cubs in that one, they are, let's run a pick 'em, slight dog. Pittsburgh and Arizona, you throw out the record books when these two teams get together. And the Pirates at 36-58, they lost the opener to Arizona last night. Is that unbelievable? The Diamondbacks are 28-68 on the season. They improved to 40 games under 500 after winning the last 2. So they beat Pittsburgh last night 4-2. Game stays under 9.5. And now it's Tyler Anderson on the mound going for Pittsburgh, who hasn't been bad this year. I mean, the Pirates are 3-1 in his last 4 starts. He's a guy that's going to eat up some innings. I mean, when I say eat up innings, I mean, look, in today's Major League Baseball, you go 6 innings, you're eating up innings. But he's allowed 2 earned runs or less in 3 straight starts, actually. And he doesn't walk a lot of batters. He's not a bad pickup for Pittsburgh. Meanwhile, for Arizona, going tonight, it's Taylor Widener. And for Widener, actually, he pitched well against the Dodgers his last time out, 4 1/3. Arizona cashes nearly a 250 underdog in a 5-2 win at Los Angeles. Widener 4 1/3, giving up an earned run, 5 strikeouts. And now he's facing Pittsburgh as, again, short favorite. Pick them depending on where you look. The Giants and the Dodgers, they're the final game of the National League tonight. And Alex Wood, the ex-Dodger, faces his former team. LA still doesn't have a pitcher decided yet. And the Giants ended up winning last night, so the Giants back in first place by themselves over LA. And I'll give the Giants a lot of credit. After a kind of a rough series against the Cardinals this past weekend, Brandon Crawford's out. The Giants, in the last 6 meetings at Dodger Stadium, they're 4-2. That's a pretty impressive job there by San Francisco. Kevin Gausman only went 3 innings last night for the Giants, and they still won 7-2. So Alex Wood goes tonight. And for Wood, 8-3, 3.67 ERA. Look what the Giants have done. This is what's so impressive about them. That probably the smartest move they made was letting Madison Bumgarner walk before last season to go to Arizona, and he's been a disaster with them. But the Giants have had Kevin Gausman, Anthony DeSclafani, Alex Wood, like all these journeyman pitchers, and then you throw in Johnny Cueto as well, who's kind of the stalwart there. But all these journeyman pitchers have come together this year for the Giants, and they got Buster Posey back after he decided to sit out last year with the, he took the option to sit out. But all these guys are pitching really well, and this isn't like the old Giants rotations that had Cy Young type pitchers. They don't have that. But these guys are getting the job done. And the Giants have won 5 of Wood's last 6 starts, and he's allowed 2 earned runs or less in 4 of his last 5 trips to the mound. So that's definitely impressive. Wood winless, though, in 2 starts earlier this year against the Dodgers, both low-scoring games. So now we'll see if Wood can do it, if he can get over the hump against his former team tonight. And again, San Francisco in first place are 1 win away from 60. That's a very impressive job there by the Giants. Now let's look at the American League and the first game of the day coming up at 3:40. A's and the Angels from Oakland. And James Caprillion goes for the Athletics, Jose Suarez for the Angels. Suarez actually has some good numbers in relief against the Athletics this year. And that's something to watch out for today. That I'll give you that number with him. That Suarez, 5 1/3 scoreless innings, 7 strikeouts against the Athletics this year. First start he's making against Oakland. Oakland won last night 4-1. Shohei Ohtani started for the Angels in the mound, but the A's ended up winning. And now Oakland's going for the mini sweep. So this series done today. Caprillion has been a nice addition to this Oakland rotation, 2.90 ERA. He's winless in his last 2 starts, though. A's are 1-3 in his last 4 starts. Picked up 10 strikeouts 2 starts ago against Boston against a really good Red Sox lineup. And he did beat the Angels earlier this season. And for Suarez, he may not go long today, but he beat the Mariners last time out. See if Joe Madden can get 5 innings out of him. Boston and Toronto, that's the 7 o'clock game up in Buffalo. And if you didn't hear, the Blue Jays later this month, they'll be returning to Toronto. So they'll finally be back at home. They missed last year. They were in Buffalo. And then this year they started in Dunedin down in Florida. And then in Buffalo now. And then they'll be back in Toronto. So that's good news for them. The Red Sox exploded against the Blue Jays last night. Huge start, 13-4 win. So after the Red Sox scored 2 runs in the final 2 losses to the Yankees this past weekend, they go nuts last night with 13 runs to beat Toronto. And for Boston, though, they've actually struggled a bit off a win of late. And the offense hasn't been great in some of those situations, scoring 3, 2, 1 off their last 3 wins. I know it's a small sample size, but still, just want to throw that one out there. And Garrett Richards goes for the Red Sox, 5-5, 4.91 ERA. Last time Richards faced the Blue Jays, Boston won, but he gave 11 hits and 4 earned runs in 5 1/3 innings. And Thomas Hatch goes for the Blue Jays. Thomas Hatch, I don't think he's the second coming of Dave Stieb, but the former Oklahoma State Cowboy. Last year, 3-1 record, 2.73 ERA in 17 appearances. So Toronto, they're giving Hatch an opportunity tonight against a very good Boston lineup. Meanwhile, another American League East showdown, to say the least. The Baltimore Orioles finally broke through against Tampa Bay last night. They were winless against the Rays this season, but they jump out to a 6-1, or they jump out to an early lead. They win 6-1. Baltimore's won 3 straight, and look, the Orioles aren't going anywhere. They're 31 games below 500, but playing a little better on the road. They swept Houston on the road. They took 2 of 3 at Kansas City. I know it's not a great accomplishment, but for a team like that, winning any road series is big. And then they shut down the Rays last night. So Tampa Bay, after winning 2 of 3 in Atlanta, they come up with a dud last night against the Orioles. And John Means is back on the mound for the Orioles tonight. He's been on the IL for a bit with a shoulder injury, making his first start in over a month and a half. And Means had the no-hitter against the Mariners way back on May 5th. And then, I don't know if you remember this, but after that, Baltimore went on a 20-something game road losing streak. So they couldn't win on the road after that no-hitter. It kind of almost jinxed them. Means pitched well his next start against the Mets. Orioles blew a late lead in that game, and the Mets won in extra innings. But since then, Means has allowed 11 earned runs in 4 starts, went on the IL after not even finishing the first inning against Cleveland back on June 5th. And Means gave up 4 earned runs in 6 1/3 innings when he faced Tampa Bay back on May 19th at home, a 9-7 loss. So he's going to try to get back into game shape and try to get back in the win column tonight. And Shane McClanahan, he starts for Tampa Bay. 4.05 ERA for the former USF Bull. McClanahan's numbers have not been bad. The Rays just haven't won a lot of these games, and in a lot of the cases, he hasn't got a lot of good run support. But Tampa Bay, though, actually 4-1 his last 5 home starts. And we'll see if Tampa Bay can bounce back after they lost to Baltimore last night. Texas and Detroit. And the Tigers, who, again, they're not going to catch the White Sox. No one's going to catch the White Sox in that American League Central. But A.J. Hinch, no matter what you think of him and what happened in Houston with all the cheating, Detroit's 44-51. That's a really good job by A.J. Hinch and this Tigers team, which doesn't have a lot of star power at all. I mean, Miguel Cabrera's towards the end of the line in his fabulous career. But the Tigers have found ways to be really competitive. And they've won 4 straight, 4-0 on this current homestand, in which they picked up 3 shutouts. And they blanked the Rangers last night 14-0. Texas now, this is an amazing accomplishment. They've been outscored 29-0 in the last 3 games. Since Sunday, Texas has been outscored 29-0. And now the Rangers will try to end their losing streak tonight with Dane Dunning on the mound. Dunning's pitched better of late. Rangers are 3-0 in his last 3 starts. He's allowed just 3 earned runs in that span. One of those wins, a 10-5 victory over the Tigers in Arlington before the All-Star break. And Tarek Skubal counters for Detroit. I found a good number on Tarek Skubal. That, look, he's a guy that'll pick up strikeouts, but the Tigers are 2-8 in his 10 night starts this year. For some reason, Skubal has been much better during the day and not so great at night. His last start came at Minnesota, gave up 5 runs in 6 innings of a 5-3 defeat to the Twins. Now, the Tigers are 3-0 in his last 3 home starts. We'll give him that, but his night number's 5.36 ERA at night. 4.36 overall. So during the day, he's been much better. At night, not so much. But Detroit playing, again, a lot better. Cleveland and Houston down at Minute Maid Park, and the Indians, after a good weekend in Oakland, taking 2 of 3 from the Athletics. So far, the Indians are 0-5, right? 0-5 against the Houston Astros this year. Last 3 losses have come by a run each, so that kind of burns. They haven't scored more than 3 runs in any of those games against the Astros. And they lose last night 4-3. Tristan McKenzie goes for Cleveland tonight, 5.47 ERA. His last start came against the Royals, 7 innings, 1 hit, 9 strikeouts. Pretty impressive job. But he's facing a much better lineup tonight. And Luis Garcia, who has found a way to put up really good numbers, even though the record doesn't reflect it. 6-5 record, but 3.06 ERA, 97 strikeouts on the season, 7 strikeouts against Oakland his last time out back on July 7th in a 4-3 win. And Garcia has pitched well. He's an under machine. If you go back 7-1 to the under his last 8 starts for Garcia, and that total at 9 tonight. 4 games to go. Last game in the American League, Minnesota in Chicago to face the White Sox. They had a couple interesting games yesterday. 2 7-inning games that both went extra innings. The Twins held off the White Sox 3-2 in the first game. That was a 1-1 game going to the 8th. Minnesota got 2 in the top of the 8th. Chicago got 1 in the bottom of the 8th, but then the White Sox couldn't get the tying run home. And Minnesota bounced back after getting swept by Detroit this past weekend. But then the Twins had an opportunity for the doubleheader sweep. They led 3-1 going to the 6th. Chicago got 1 in the bottom of the 6th, then hit a walk-off homer in the bottom of the 7th to win 5-3. So Jose Berrios, with the unfortunate complete game loss in 6 innings, gave up 5 earned runs, but also allowed 3 homers. And the White Sox end up splitting that doubleheader with Minnesota. So the Twins still a mess at 40-54. Total down year for them. And tonight it is Dallas Keuchel and Bailey Ober on the mound. Keuchel defeated the Orioles his last time out. 7 innings, 1 run, 7 hits. And Keuchel right now riding a 3-1 overrun. His last 4 starts. The White Sox, they have played well when Keuchel takes the mound in Chicago, 4-1 his last 5 home starts, but that number's dropped. And, well, at least a little earlier it dropped. Let me see where it's at now. I mean, you see it on the screen. Okay, it's bounced back up, minus 140-ish. That was around minus 130 earlier today. So Bailey Ober will counter for Minnesota. And Ober, Red Rover. Look at all these overs for Bailey Ober. His last 5 appearances all over the total. And the last time he faced Chicago, 13-3 loss. Actually, let me take that back. That was in Chicago, a 13-3 loss back on June 30th. When he took on the White Sox at home on July 5th, an 8-5 win, 5 scoreless innings, 7 strikeouts. So a tale of 2 starts for Ober against the White Sox, but he's been an over machine recently. Now the interleague games for today and tonight. The Phillies and the Yankees, they meet up in the Bronx. Aaron Nola and Domingo Germán on the mound. Nola back from his COVID stint. And the last time he pitched was back on July 6th, so he's been out for 2 weeks. He was due to pitch July 11th against Boston, the final game before the All-Star break, but he was in COVID protocol. Phillies actually won that game over the Red Sox 5-4. That was a pretty impressive victory. But Philadelphia now, they're coming back to life. They've won 5 of 6, and they're above 500, so they're trying to catch the Mets. And the one thing Philadelphia has over New York right now is Philadelphia has the pitching. Mets don't have it because DeGrom is hurt. But you go with Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, even Zach Eflin, who's kind of up and down, that the Phillies at least have some semblance of a rotation where the Mets, they're kind of putting it all together. And, again, no Jacob DeGrom obviously hurts. So Nola goes tonight for Philadelphia. He's had a rough season from an ERA standpoint, 4.53, still pretty good strikeout to walk ratio, 126 strikeouts, 23 walks. But Nola's allowed 11 earned runs and 15 hits his last 2 outings. And Nola faces the Yankees, who we actually shut out last time he faced him at Citizens Bank Park back on June 13th. 7 2/3 innings, 9 strikeouts, 3 hits, no runs. So we'll see if he does it again. And it does tell you a lot. The Phillies favored here against the Yankees, who just won 2 of 3 against Boston. And Domingo Germán, who a couple of years ago was pretty dominant for New York, 18-4 record back in 2019, but just 4-5 this year. And I mean, just the numbers are not the same as they were a few years ago. And the Yankees, too, I want to make sure I get my facts straight on this one. The Yankees, at least in home series openers, you want a good number? The Yankees have lost 8 consecutive home series openers, dating back to May 25th. They lost 6-2 to Toronto, 3-1 to Tampa Bay, 5-2 to Boston, 5-3 to Oakland, 6-5 to Kansas City, 5-3 to the Angels, 8-3 to the Mets, 4-0 to the Red Sox. So they're getting blown out in a lot of these games. I don't know, maybe take Philly on the run line. Could be worth a look. But Philadelphia, Nola's pitched well. Yankees have stunk in these first games of a series, so that could be worth something. The Royals and the Brewers in Milwaukee, that's a 4:10 first pitch. That was originally an 8:10 first pitch, but the Brewers did something pretty smart, and they moved the game to not compete with the Bucks. The Bucks game starts at 9 o'clock Eastern, and the Brewers just didn't want to compete with them, which is very smart, and it's baseball. I mean, you can move the game to earlier in the day, and it's fine. And they have a roof in Miller Park anyway, so the weather isn't going to be a factor. But Milwaukee now playing an afternoon game against Kansas City. The Brewers actually lost 2 games to the Royals earlier this year at Kauffman Stadium. Mike Minor has not been good of late. But Mike Minor, though, his best starts this year have all been when he's a big underdog. He beat the Athletics, he beat the White Sox as a road dog, and lost 2-1 at Tampa Bay as like a plus 180 dog. So Mike Minor can be worth a look here against the Brewers, who are coming off a sweep of the Reds. Maybe catch Milwaukee in a tough spot today against this Kansas City team. Seattle and Colorado, the final game of the night in the interleague circle. And one of the hottest pitchers in baseball goes Germán Marquez. He starts for the Rockies against Marco Gonzalez. And Gonzalez, who was the ace of this Mariners staff, that's not really the case anymore. You say it's Chris Flexen now or Logan Gilbert because they've been really good for Seattle. But Colorado off that walk-off win over L.A. on Sunday on the Charlie Blackmon homer. Germán Marquez, he's 8-6 with a 3.36 ERA. Okay, people probably wouldn't be thrilled with that. But in Marquez's last 5 starts, he's allowed 3 earned runs. 7 scoreless innings at San Diego's last time out. And the Rockies have won. Just want to get the numbers straight here. 7 straight starts at home made by Marquez. Last time he lost was that 12-4 loss to the Giants back on May 4th where he couldn't get out of the first inning. But he has been basically a machine at home. And also Marquez, 5 straight unders. And the Rockies, from a total standpoint at home, they were 1-2, or 2-1 to the under, I guess, however you want to say it. 2-1 to the under against LA this past week. And before that, 4 straight unders against St. Louis, 3 unders against Pittsburgh. So the Rockies, 9-1 to the under their last 10 games at Coors Field. And they face Seattle tonight, where Marco Gonzalez did pick up a no decision his last time out at the Angels, but the Mariners won 7-3. And the Mariners have scored 6, 7, and 7 in Gonzalez's last 3 starts. And you kind of wonder now, Marquez beat the Mariners earlier this year in Seattle. But you wonder if now, is Marquez due for a letdown after having all these great starts and having the All-Star break? And also, are we going to finally have a Colorado over at home? I mean, they did have one against the Dodgers this past weekend, but they've been very few and far between. But Seattle, look, 5-2 the last 7. They're competitive. The lineup's not great, but they keep finding ways to win. And Seattle and Colorado split a series back at T-Mobile now, back earlier in the season. Now they play a 2-game series here in Colorado the next 2 days. So that's a look at Major League Baseball for tonight. And, yeah, we got a lot going on. And we'll be back with you on Thursday for the Daily Insider. And, again, will it be all baseball, or will we have a Game 7 of the NBA Finals between the Bucks and the Suns out in Phoenix? That, again, to be determined. But, again, want to remind you about the Daily Insider contest. Very easy to enter. If you have a Vegas Insider user ID, you can put that in the comments section below this video and put your best bet for the day, whether it's Major League Baseball or NBA. It can be a first 5-inning play in baseball. It could be just a side for a whole game. It could be a strikeout prop. It could be a player prop. And the same thing in the NBA if you want to take a player prop for tonight, as well as first quarter bet, first half bet. It's up to you. It cannot be a live bet. It's got to be before the game starts. And you put that, your Vegas Insider user ID, as well as your best bet for the night, put in the comment section below, and you'll have an opportunity to win a week's worth of handicapper picks from one handicapper on VegasInsider.com. 7 days, $100 value for free, and you'll be in the drawing for it if you win your bet. If you lose your bet, you will not be in the drawing for it because you lost. Now, if you do not have a Vegas Insider user ID, go up to the big yellow register button in the upper right-hand corner. Free membership. Register now. Click on that. And again, this is free. Doesn't cost you anything to register. And you create a user ID. You create a password. Put in your email address, first and last name, so we get in contact with you. And you'll be all set. You'll be all set to go. Again, I thank you for watching, and we will talk to you again coming up on Thursday at noon Eastern Time. I am Kevin Rogers. Have fun with the baseball and the NBA Finals tonight. And as always, best of luck with your bets.